درست. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، واجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وقل يا غفور أسرتي، فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وأسرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، والقت بلاء قد فكبتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مزاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره، وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة عطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير ما حاجة بي إلي عظيما، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك السهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفك عن ظلمي، وسترك على خبي أملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، إنما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني. في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه من الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك. سحر ندا شد ز کوی جانان که عاصیان را بکار داریم، برای عفو گناهکاران سحرگاهان انتظار داریم. گناهکاران به یاد مایی، چو توبه کردی مراد مایی. رموز اسم جواد مایی، باپ خود افتخار داریم. تو بندگی کن و ما خدایی، گمان مفرما ز ما جدایی. نفس کشیدی به صبحگاهی، یگان یگان را شمار داریم. اگر نیایی به منزل ما، وگر گریزی ز محفل ما، بدامت آرد سلاسل ما. همیشه میل شکار داریم. تو خود ندانی که اشک جایی بدن که با ما تو آشنایی قدم برون از این گدایی که از این گداییت عار داریم فإن أبت عني أتبت بجهلي عليك ولعل الذي أبت عنه خير لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك فتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك كأنني تطول عليك فلم يعلى كذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجل عليه بفضل إحسانك إنك جواد كريم الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح خالق الأسماء ديان الدين رب العالمين الحمد لله على حلمي بعد علمي والحمد لله على عفوي بعد قدرتي والحمد لله على طول أناتي في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق خالق الأسماء ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشد النجوى تبارك وتعالى الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يغادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا زهير يعازده قهر بعزته الأعزة وتواضع لعظمة العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة ما أنا عاصي ويعزم النعمة علي فلا أجازي فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني وعزيمة مخوفة قد كفاني وباجة مونقة قد أراني فأثني عليه حامدا واذكره مسبحا الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجامه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب آمله الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويذع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبيد الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موجع ذات الطالبين مؤتمن المؤمنين الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيد الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير.
اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وآفز سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتهننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وهجتك على خلقك وآية الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيد نساء العالمين. وصل على سبط رحمته وإمام الهدى الحسن والحسين سيد شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حجتك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمن والعدل المنتظر وهفوا بملائكة المقربين وأيدوا بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل له الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفا في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلي مكن له دينه الذي ارتزيته له أبدلوا من بعد خوفي آمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به وانصروا وانتصر به وانصروا نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر بدينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاء إلى طاعتك رحمتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم بي شعثنا واشعب بي صدعنا وارتق بي فتقنا وكسر به قلتنا وأعزز بي زلتنا وأغني بي آئلنا واقضي بي عن مغرمنا واجبر بي فقرنا وسد بي خلتنا ويسر بي وسرنا وبيض بي وجوهنا وفك بي أسرنا وأنجه بي تلبتنا وأنجز بي مواعيدنا واستجب بي دعوتنا وآتنا بي سؤلنا وبلغنا بي من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وآتنا بي فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف بي صدورنا وأذهب بي غيظ قلوبنا وأهدنا بي لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم وانصرنا بي على عدوك وعدونا. إله الحق الآمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبذره تكشفه ونصر تعزه. سلطان حق تظهره ورحمة من تجللنا وعاقبة من تلبسنها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. قبول.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We just finished day 23 of blessed month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our prayers, our fasting and our efforts, inshallah. And if I can have your attention, my brothers and sisters, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all your prayers, inshallah. Our month of Ramadan programs will continue through the end of month of Ramadan, every day about an hour before iftar with recitation of Quran. Everybody is welcome to participate in this Quran recitation. If you have the time, please join the Quran recitation. Speaking of the programs, as a reminder, as I've been mentioning in last couple nights, tomorrow is the Marhum Maghfur Juma Khan Bassam's funeral. He was the brother-in-law of our Haj Karim Bassam and Haj Rahmat Bassam. His funeral is scheduled for tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Besht Zahra, Kaneho Mountain. If you have the time to join, please do so. And also the Fatiha for Marhum Mahfoor Jama Khan Basam is scheduled for tomorrow also, the same day, around 5 p.m. in Masjid al-Rasul right here in this masjid. So please participate if you have the time. Also, for our sister Hajia Masuma Abdul Wahid, she was the mother-in-law of our brother Jafar al-Ammara and grandmother of Muhammad al-Ammara, Sister Zahra, Sister Hawra, and Sister Fatima's grandmother. And her Fatiha, Majlis al-Fatiha, has been scheduled for this Friday at 5:30 p.m. right here at Masjid al-Rasul. So if you have the time, please join these. And again, for the soul of all of the marhumin, especially for these two, our community members that we lost in past few days, please recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I've been trying to announce this, but we found a pair of glasses. It's been for a few days, it's been here, but I've been forgetting. If you lost it, it's here. Yeah, and these are very thick ones too. I tried to on myself. Oh, I can't even see anymore. Okay, so if you lost a pair of glasses, these are here. Please come and pick it up from podium. With that, it's your, okay. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. With that being said, please see Brother Said Razak and Brother Ziyai Amili and pay your monthly donations. We need your monthly donations to pay for the utilities, for the maintenance. MashaAllah. Okay, I'll check with you, and then we will announce that starting tomorrow, inshallah. Okay. With that said, Ajaga Modares will revisit the topic of Prophet Ibrahim, a one-man nation today. There's a lot of noises, my brothers and sisters. We are not too many people tonight. I don't know why. Thank you, wife. Okay. Ajaga Modares will revisit the topic of Prophet Ibrahim, a one-man nation. And now, respectfully, I welcome Ajaga Modares to podium for the speech. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Please, Mr. Fadl. Light, turn on the light then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our fast and prayers until this day, up to this day. Especially may Allah accept our efforts to experience the night of Qadr, the night of power and destiny, and may Allah grant us a year that is ahead of us, a year filled with blessing, with faith, with conviction and rahmah, with another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the honor of our beloved Prophet and his immaculate progeny and family, the one who are preservers of the message of Allah and the one who propagated this message. And we are in need of understanding the religion of Islam through the lens of Quran and the Prophet and his family. And we should be grateful for the hard work and sacrifices that was made by them. Let's recite a salawat for the honor of the Prophet and his family. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أعداء الله أجمعين من الآن إلى لقاء يوم الدين. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: وإذ قال إبراهيم رب أرني كيف تحيي الموتى قال أولم تؤمن قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي قال فخذ 4 من الطير فصرهن إليك ثم اجعل على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعهن يأتينك سعيا واعلم أن الله عزيز حكيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten our hearts by the light of Iman and guidance with the love of the Prophet and his family, and help us to cleanse our souls from corruption, deviance, and misguidance, from diseases of the soul, including arrogance, pride, and greed, with the salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Ibrahim alayhi salam was cast into fire. He was catapulted to fire by Namrud, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him, saved his life. And later on, Nimrud forced Ibrahim alayhi salam to leave Babylon, or Babil. Babylon is the English name. Babil was the known name. And I mentioned in the last discussion we had on Ibrahim alayhi salam, how Nimrud was punished when he declared war against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He set up this show that I'm going to defeat the Lord of Ibrahim. And eventually he was punished by one of the weakest or one of the smallest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now Ibrahim continues his journey from the city of Ur to Babylon, and now he goes toward what is known as Syria now. And eventually he finds its way to Palestine. These are very connected areas. Today they are divided to these different countries. Back then it was just part of the big Mesopotamia empire of the time. But modern day, in order to know the names, Syria, Palestine. And we see one thing about about Ibrahim alayhi salam, which is interesting, is that he's a man of travel. He's a man that doesn't stay in one place. And one of the reasons he's called father of the Abrahamic religion and monotheism is due to this presence in many regions of the world. From Jerusalem to Iraq and later on to Mecca and Hijaz, we see the footsteps of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He goes even to Egypt at one point. He comes back to Palestine, and then eventually he comes to Mecca. At the time, it's not a city, it's a barren land. He goes back and forth. We get there, inshallah, hopefully by the grace of Allah, and inshallah, doing my best to hopefully summarize the story, because as we're getting closer to the end of our programs, I want us to have a complete chronological understanding of the life of Ibrahim to the best of our abilities. But in no shape and form I claim that what are we talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam is going to cover every details of his life, neither all the traditions or ahadith that we have about him. Rather, we try to make it a cohesive story, a chronological story. So we have that when Ibrahim alayhi salam left Babylon, he left with a man that we are familiar with. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَآمَنَ لَهُ لُوطٌ وَقَالَ إِنِّي مُهَاجِرٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. There is an important personality that is among the few who believed in Ibrahim. Ibrahim was not leaving Babylon alone. After the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after how Allah saved Ibrahim from the fire, we see that now slowly there are a small number of people believing in the message of Ibrahim. And among people that they are among the minorities who believe in him is his cousin Lut alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَآمَنَ لَهُ لُوط. And Lut believed in Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَقَالَ إِنِّي مُهَاجِرٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي. And he said, indeed, I will immigrate to the service of my Lord. So he also left Babylon with Ibrahim, with his cousin, and as I said at this point, the one that he believes in. إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. He is the exalted in might and the wise, referring that if we are leaving Babylon behind, this doesn't take away from the might and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aziz, and this is another beauty of the Quran, and I want you to think of that whenever Allah talks about in a story or a sign of Allah's power, the names that Allah uses or the sifat that Allah uses at the end, usually at the end of the verse, is connected to the content of the verse. For example, we talked about it when we were reciting Quran, Surah Al-Zumar, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that if any of you transgress against himself or herself, remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving, right? This is La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Do not lose your hope in Allah's mercy. So the content of the verse is about repentance, is about a new, basically giving second chances, third chances, is the promise of hope. So how Allah ends that ayah? Ghafurur Rahim. The names that Allah uses at the end of that ayah is Ghafur. Among all the names, we remember Allah is forgiver. Rahim, He is merciful. So those names, and I want you to pay attention, next time you come to those names, they seem very rhythmic, right? We like that they finish at the same kind of tone, right? They have this rhyming. Ghafurur Rahim, Alimun Hakim, other ayat that we have, Ala kulli shay'in qadir. But even that ending, there is a wisdom. It's not just Allah just said, okay, I'm going to use one of my names here. Here when Lut alayhi salam is leaving Babylon with Ibrahim, he said, I'm going to immigrate to serve my Lord. I'm going to leave my city behind because of my Lord. And then he says that Allah is Aziz and Hakim. Aziz meaning the one who is exalted in might. Aziz means undefeatable. The one whose power has no match. So to say this, that means that if you are leaving city of Babylon is not a sign of defeat. It's not that, oh, God forbid, Allah or the messenger of God lost to Nimrud. How we know is not you're leaving, you're being exiled, you're being kicked out. Then he says the second name. What is that second name? Hakim. He is almighty and powerful, but also he is wise. There's wisdom. That in power, there's not just brutal force of Allah, that is just, there's going to be energy and excessive of force and that's it. That even power of Allah has wisdom with it. That sometimes Allah withholds His power out of His wisdom. If Allah didn't punish Nimrud right away, it wasn't because Nimrud was undefeatable. Later on we see that Nimrud was defeated by a fly or by a mosquito. So Ibrahim leaves the city of Babylon with Lut alayhi salam. And we're not going to talk about Prophet Lut here. Just to know that eventually Ibrahim alayhi salam tells Prophet Lut alayhi salam to go to a part of Palestine, that the cities that are known as Sodom and Gomorrah, that he's responsible to go and do tabligh or preach the message of God in that area. And eventually the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, we know that they are getting basically involved with this major sin and haram, and the story of Lut alayhi salam and the punishment of Allah for them. But Lut alayhi salam is another prophet of God. And I want you to think about, this is in the middle of this story, what I heard quite often is that sometimes there are individuals who try to object to Quran, question some facts about faith. Among those recently, I received this video that somebody on social media was talking about that, look, Muslims, or at least referring to us, that we believe that there were 124,000 messengers of God. Right? We heard about that, right? Number 124,000 prophets of God. And the way he does it, he does some mathematics. I said, okay, let's assume this is the length of the history from this time to this time, how many years it has been. And if we divide it by 124,000, it means that every few days or a few hours, one prophet of God came. See, this is ridiculous. This number is made up. It makes no sense. The issue of that is that for these people, they think that all 124,000 prophets of God, they came one after another. That means one has to come and finish his prophethood for the another to start. When in reality, we had that there were so many prophets of God who served Allah at the same time. Especially at the early years of humans receiving guidance from Allah, there was very localized. Society was very tribal and localized. Every small region, they had their own prophets. So it could have been that in one time, multiple prophets of God could live on the face of earth. And that doesn't contradict the message of God. The point is that those who are looking for problems, they will find it. Those who want to say that this is wrong, they will find it. And no matter how much we try to justify, we try to explain, we try to elaborate, if somebody doesn't want to believe, they will not believe. And I always give this example, that when we see there are people who don't believe in modern medicine, we have anti-vaxxers, we have flat earthers, we have so many other people who believe in very rare form of reality. No matter how much visual evidence is presented to them, they said, you know what, I don't care, I don't believe in it, I think this is all hoax, this has been made up, there was some big scheme behind it. If people cannot be convinced on a matter of something as tangible and physical as biology, right? You cannot, convince them that, okay, vaccine has benefit or not. Again, I'm not here to say it is or not. But I'm saying there are people who are deniers of that. Anti-vaxxers are known for it. And they say we have our own evidence. Although the majority of the healthcare system in the world, the WHO and all that may disagree with them, but they still stand on their ground and say, you know what? I'm still going to insist that what I know and what I believe in is right. Of course, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to the unseen, when it comes to the ghaib, when it comes to the past, it will not be possible to convince every single person. If they don't want to believe, they will not. يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ وَيُضِلُّ مَن يَشَاءُ. Those who want guidance, they will receive guidance. Those who seek misguidance and they choose misguidance, Allah will give them misguidance. That's their choice and their call. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he continues his journey to Syria. And then there is another part of the story that's in the Quran of Ibrahim in Surah Al-Baqarah. After ayat, which is known as Ayatul Kursi, in verse 260 of Surah Baqarah. And this is when Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a performance, that he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show him how he resurrects and how he revived the dead. When this happened, Quran doesn't mention. Was this in Babylon or was this in Syria or Palestine? And most likely, based on the details of the story, it seems wherever this happened was many mountains. It was a mountainous region. And based on geographical location, it seems to be the Syria-Palestine area rather than Babylon, which it doesn't have that many mountains compared with there. But ultimately, regardless, we're going to go based on this part of the story, that when he gets there, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a process of resurrection. How this happened, according to narration, it had been said that Ibrahim alayhi salam one day, he was walking by a lake or by a river, by water, and he saw a dead animal's corpse. That half of this animal was inside water and half of it was on the shore. And he saw that the animal from the sea are eating from this corpse, from the flesh of the corpse of this animal. And the animals of the land are also feeding off of it. And it was a very shocking moment that there's not much left from the carcass of this dead animal. And in that moment he said this, وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Ibrahim alayhi salam said, my Lord, show me how you revive the dead. When I see what's happening to this. قَالَ أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ. The first reaction to the question of Ibrahim is that, do you not believe? Don't you have iman? قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. And Ibrahim alayhi salam responded, indeed I believe, but in order that my heart may be at tranquility, or may I have this increase of faith, increase of certainty. And how we know that this is not a question of, God forbid, doubt. You may say, how is that? That Ibrahim, the man who was catapulted to fire, the one that he was able to put his life in line for the sake of Allah, now he says, how you revive the dead. He doesn't ask, can you revive the dead? It doesn't ask about the power of Allah. It's very clear for Ibrahim alayhi salam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is almighty and all powerful. But the question is, kayfa? How? Show me. I want to know how this works. And for someone like Ibrahim alayhi salam to ask this question, it's fine. You know why? Because as a prophet of God, your faith and your conviction has to be in a level that others can cling on to you. You are a teacher, and the way as a teacher you should preach that message should be at the highest level of certainty. You have iman, that's fine. You have certainty, that's fine. But the highest state of iman is another matter. That even a prophet of God can grow in his faith. It's not that a prophet of God got to the end of it and they have all the iman. No, still you grow. And that's the same answer we have for people say why we say salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So why? Wasn't prophet, he lived a righteous life, he was a prophet of God, he was the best of creation. Why? He doesn't need our salawat. The answer, one is that of course Allah said to do it. It's a command of Allah. But more than that, even logically if you look at it, even a prophet of God like Rasulullah, although he is going to be in Jannah, but doesn't mean that he got this position that he doesn't need more du'as. As a human being, as a soul of a prophet, he still can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these salawat will benefit Prophet. We believe in it. These are du'as and prayers upon the Prophet. And the highest is the higher the station that he will achieve, the higher his dua in return will benefit us. The one who's closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make dua for us. So we see that Ibrahim is not the only one who asked for this, by the way. We see that there are other prophets of God who also ask for this. For example, we have that Nuh alayhi salam, when his son drowned, he asked the question that, Ya Allah, you told me that you will protect my ahl, you will protect my family, but my son is my family. When Allah responded, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ, right? إِنَّهُ عَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. That he is not your family, is not your responsibility. Indeed, according to his action, he is an impious, lack of righteousness is an action, led him to be not part of your responsibility anymore. So Nuh alayhi salam asked a question. But we have that there are people who are not prophets and ask questions. That's a different story. So I get to the story of Ibrahim quickly now. But the question is, if Ibrahim can ask that, can I ask that question as well? Ya Allah, show me. Right? And I can say the same thing. Ya Allah, show me how you revive the dead. Show me how angels are descending. Show me things. The answer according to the Quran is that when it comes to the average people, the non-prophets, they cannot do this because what has been descended and what has been sent is already sufficient from the signs of Allah. Because our mission is to do what we can do according to our responsibility as a human being who's not infallible, who doesn't have divine connection. What is expected of us is to act accordingly. But for a prophet of God is different. That's why when disciples of Jesus alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, when they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they ask Isa alayhi salam, Anzil alayna ma'idatan min as-sama. Ask your Lord to send us this heavenly food, a feast, a spread. We have that the response to them was, how you ask this? How you ask for this? That what has been sent to you, it was already sufficient. It was necessary for you. It's been not an acceptable offer from them, acceptable request from them. Rather, they were criticized for that offer, from that request. Why? Because Hawariyun are not prophets. They are followers of Isa alayhi salam. But Ibrahim said, Ya Allah, show me how you revived the dead. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to clarify for all of us, said, is this for the lack of faith, God forbid? And he says, of course not. Qala bala, I have faith, I have iman. But I want my faith to increase, I want to grow. I want to get even stronger. Again, how can we say that Ibrahim doesn't need this when we see what is ahead of Ibrahim? Ibrahim has a lot to go through. He has to still go through the journey to Egypt and Ismail's birth, and then take them all the way to a barren land and abandon them. And then once he grows to an age of maturity, there's so much coming on his way, so he needs a strong faith. That's why if somebody like Ibrahim asks for that, is an acceptable request. Because you look at the output and you look at the input. You look at what Allah is giving Ibrahim and what He's asking in return. Why we say we should not ask for these kind of miracles of Allah? We can ask for guidance. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. The only wajib dua that we are required to ask Allah every single day. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim is a mandatory prayer. Ya Allah, guide us to the straight path. But we cannot say, Ya Allah, show me miracles. Ya Allah, and then place an order, this kind of miracle. I want to see it this way. Why? Because the output from us is not going to be that much. What is expected of us is not going to be what Allah is expecting of Ibrahim alayhi salam. On the Eid al-Adha, all we are asked to, if we are in Hajj, is to sacrifice a sheep. But for the Ibrahim who asked for that miracle, on the Eid al-Adha, Allah asked him to sacrifice what he loved the most at that time, which was his son. So the input requires that kind of output. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, okay, if this is what you're asking, قَالَ فَخُذْ أَرْبَعَةً مِّنَ الطَّيْرِ, said, oh Ibrahim, take 4 birds. Get 4 birds. فَصُرْهُنَّ إِلَيْكَ ثُمَّ اجْعَلْ عَلَى كُلِّ جَبَلٍ. And then what you do with them is that you get these birds and you slaughter them, you kill them. Then you mix them. You are kind of making sure that they are going to be unrecognizable. فَصُرْهُنَّ إِلَيْكَ ثُمَّ اجْعَلْ عَلَى كُلِّ جَبَلٍ. Cut them to pieces, place them apart on every mountain. And we have a narration that there was 10 mountains. Allah said, get 4 birds and put them on 10 separate mountains. What were these birds? Again, this is where tradition comes to our assistance. It's been mentioned that these 4 birds, one of them was a peacock, another one was a crow, another one was a dove or a pigeon, and one of them, the last one, we have that it was a rooster. And some of the Mufassirin, they said that each of them, they have these esoteric or kind of deeper representation, that each of these birds represents something about our nature. For example, the rooster represents the beauty of the man. And the crow, it represents the greed and the desires of collection and having. And the dove and pigeon represent entertainment and distractions of the man. And rooster represent our physical desires. Each of them represents something. And that's not, again, as I said, the story of Ibrahim. We want to keep it as short as possible. That these birds and sacrificing them, it symbolizes that in order to truly get to that strong iman, you need to manage these desires. You need to balance them. You need to tame them in order to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. If you want to find that itminan and a tranquil heart, this is what has to be done. So we had that Ibrahim a.s. kills these 4 birds. put them on 10 different mountains. Then Allah said, ثُمَّ ادْعُهُنَّ. What you do is, you call upon them. You call upon them, that you say that you will be the one that you initiate the resurrection by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you call on them, and by permission of Allah, they will come to you. يَأْتِينَكَ سَعْيًا. And once this happens, they will come to you rushing, with hastening. They will come to you fast. وَعَلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And again, be aware that Allah is almighty and all-wise. So we have that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he observes resurrection. And he sees that once he started calling these birds, how the pieces of this bird, they come together. And by the might and the power of Allah, by the permission of Allah, they're being resurrected. And last night I mentioned that the power, as Allah said in Surah Ghafir, the one who created the heavens and the earth. When you look at how unimaginable it is to think of the size of the universe, that power for Him to recreate us, to resurrect us, it shouldn't seem that difficult. For the power to bring all this out of nothing, to create all this beauty out of nothing, do you think resurrecting, which is recreating this, it will be a tough job? The one who created Adam alayhi salam from scratch, from the teen we refer to, right? From the dry dirt. That power, is it difficult for Him to be able to resurrect the same human being? And here Ibrahim alayhi salam, after seeing this miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he continues his journey, that inshallah we will talk more about this tomorrow night, toward Palestine and what he will go through there. But just one more thing to talk about resurrection. Again, we can call this part of Ibrahim alayhi salam's story, Ibrahim and the resurrection of the dead. That there are other prophets of Allah that Allah give us example of them, like Prophet Uzair, which his name is not mentioned. Some said he was a prophet, some say he wasn't. Again, details is irrelevant here at this point. أو كالذي مر على قرية وهي خاوية على عروشها. When a man was passing by of the ruins of a town and he saw these ruins, and again he asked similar question. He saw something that asked him, كيف تحيي الموتى, how you resurrected. And then Allah said, in case of him, Uzair, Allah make him die. Allah took his soul away for 100 years. And then once he was revived, he said, how long you been asleep? He was asked. He said, half a day or part of the day. He said, no, look at your food, look at your right, look what's going on. And how Allah showed the resurrection of death to him. Another example is the Ashab al-Kahf, companion of the cave. So Quran give us examples of instances that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought humanity. And in some shape and form, we can say even our biology, that has been, again, these are according to studies, you can look it up yourself. I do not claim that I'm a biologist, or I know it, but again, this is based on the sources that I find. Again, my sources are not Facebook or WhatsApp. Again, I try to go to the sources that either are academic or pre-reviewed and are approved by the scientific field. It's been said that human beings, we have an average, at least for adult male, 36 trillion cells in our body. And almost every 7 years, our cells go through regeneration. That our cell dies and new cells replaces them. And this is part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation and maintaining this physical body. So according to some of our ulama, then when we say كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, every soul tastes death. It says not that will taste death. You are tasting death right now. That's one opinion, is a bit extreme, but again, it's still كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. It doesn't say will. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ. Every soul is tasting death. And in every given moment, we are losing cells. Our cells are dying and the regeneration of our cells. So resurrection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Maybe, again, we do not know the details of how that resurrection happens. Maybe, again, there are a lot of different theories about it, but ultimately knowing the power who was able to create man, the power was able to create the universe, it should not seem shocking or unplausible or impossible to that power to recreate, to resurrect, to revive this body. May Allah, by the honor of Ibrahim alayhi salam, by the honor of descendants of Ibrahim, Ismail, and our Prophet, and the descendant of our Prophet, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, grant us the tawfiq of finding increase of iman, tranquility of the heart, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to clear our hearts from doubt, from especially a permanent doubt, from a doubt that is consistent. That usually a lot of doubts happen not because of cognition. It doesn't happen because of thinking. Many doubts occur because of the heart. There's two types of doubts. Maybe I will talk about that tomorrow night. The doubts of the mind and the doubt of the heart. They're not the same material. They're not the same type. And they don't have the same solution. One issue that we have is we try to address these doubts the same way. Someone who has doubt of the heart, we try to provide them logic, philosophy, reasoning. But the issue is not the logic. The logic is fine. The heart, the soul is corrupted. We will talk about that more tomorrow night. We ask Allah to help us to pass the stage of doubt, either the doubt of the mind or the heart, and get to the, inshallah, wadi, the valley of yaqeen and certainty, inshallah, with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's, inshallah, if everybody stand up, we finish with the ziyarah. وَعَجَّلِ اللَّهُمَّ فِي فَرَجِ مَوْلَانَا صَاحِبَ الْعَصْرِ وَالزَّمَانِ. السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا نبي الله يا خير خلق الله يا خاتم النبيين. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين ويا إمام المتقين علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليكما أيها الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين. السلام على علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام على محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام على محمد بن علي التقي الجواد. السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي النقي. السلام على حسن بن علي العسكري الزكي. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان يا خليفة الرحمن يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ولشفاء مرضانا رحم الله لمن قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.